Hello there, you beautiful soul, and welcome back to another segment of Culture Talks with Rebecca Munoz, your host of Cultured Society. I have another special guest tonight, and as you can tell, the conversations that we have had, although they are the same questions, it is a very different conversation every single time. And it's such a beautiful thing because my guests come from a variety of backgrounds and ethnicities, colors, dynamics, philosophies. I mean, you name it, there's so much variety in this world, but we can agree on one thing, that we can all come together as a collective and have a conversation about these ideals and embrace each other. And because we are a part of one body. I like to say that we are a part of one body in Christ. It doesn't really matter what or who you believe in. Just know that at the end of the day, we are all a part of one body. And these guests that I have attending these conversations are people that have come across my path throughout my lifetime that have impacted my life in so many different ways. And my special guest tonight, Michelle Foster, has been a woman that has just inspired me, has motivated me, has been a mentor, has been a business partner, has been a friend, soul sister. I mean, the list can go on. And I'm just so grateful for the opportunity that we have tonight to hear what Michelle has to say. She has so much value to offer this world, just like every other guest that we have. But, I just like to have these conversations because every single conversation can allow us to adopt a higher perspective and also to gain some little nuggets of wisdom that can really help us, move forward in our journey. So to introduce Michelle, Michelle was actually born in New York City and moved to Colorado because of her father's business from a very young age. Her entire life has been about corporate relocations and has moved 11 times through her own career. She spent majority of her career in the health industry, going to Johnson & Johnson straight out of college. They were hiring women in the workforce outside of administrative roles and believed athletes would be a fit in their culture. She was a downhill ski racer and became one of 6 of the women to be hired at that company. Her career took off due to her desire to be successful. The company trained her and kept her accountable throughout her time there. She evolved through a time with executive business coaches and encouraged, guided, advised, and assured her that her abilities were to be successful. Michelle has always believed in herself and has made a career of uplifting and believing in others. She strongly believes that you teach what you have been shown through your experiences. Her career has now spanned over 4 decades of basic principles that still and will always rule the way we achieve success. Define what that means to you, make an agreement with yourself that you are worth it, and never take anything personally. With that being said, I introduce the beautiful Michelle Foster. Now, Michelle, is definitely more than a career woman, and I believe that she really is now more than ever aligned with her divine purpose. And like I mentioned earlier, she has been such an inspiration to my life and has truly believed and uplifted me even during times that I didn't believe in myself. So thank you again, Michelle, for taking the time to join us today. I know that today's conversation is going to be so powerful and so shifting because of all the experiences and enlightening conversations that you've had throughout your lifetime, right? So I want to start off by asking you that first question of, what is your life's philosophy?
You know, you said it earlier when you have a lot of different guests and we all get the same questions, but we all have a different answer. And quite frankly, if you asked me that question yesterday, I would have had a different answer than I have at this moment right now. So I think that my life's philosophy is simply change, because every breath we take, every thought we have, every morsel of nutrition we put in our bodies evolves a change in everything that we are and everything we do. Just hearing you just support and love me changed my brain, my chemical being right now. So I would say my philosophy about life is that it is changing every nanosecond of every single day.
Yes. Yes, that's so true. We are a never-ending evolution, and we should never accept not changing. I believe that if you're not changing, you're not living. And that is so important to embrace that concept. Now, you said that if I would have asked you that question yesterday, it would have been different. So tell me how that philosophy has evolved over the years.
Yeah, well, I would just tell you from yesterday to today, right? I call myself a forever learner. So I once again jumped into a learning opportunity that had me do an extraordinary homework assignment. Extraordinary. And it made me realize that the beliefs that I had, a belief, let's start there. A belief is just something that you continually repeat to yourself. So is it something that goes away? Yeah, if you stop talking about it. you know, if you stop believing it. So, yesterday I believed this
Mhm,
about things in my life, and today I believe that. I'll
mhm,
give you an example. It's a wonderful example, in my opinion. So, we have a lot of things that we hold on to, and I'll use something that at least I know I have in my life, and hopefully some people in your audience may have a thing called debt, right? I still have a mortgage on my home, so I have debt. Now, in our society, we consider that to be bad, right?
mhm,
Or unsuccessful, or a mistake. Really? Really? Well, now I believe that the people that offered me my mortgage, the bank that allowed me to have debt, I really am grateful for them.
mhm,
Why? Because they provided me with my home. This isn't a house, this is my home.
mhm,
So that debt, I need to be so grateful to that debtor. And
mhm,
if you can allow yourself to be thankful for absolutely everything in your life, then your beliefs can be nothing but the sweetness, right?
yeah,
The perfection of joy.
mhm,
So I really embraced that theory yesterday, and I wound up releasing an amazing amount of old beliefs and turning, and believe me, I wrote and wrote and wrote what I felt, and then I turned it into how grateful and thankful I was, and then I burned it all to heck. And it went away, and it was just an amazing experience. So really, I mean, you kind of caught me on a big change day.
Oh, good. I love
Thank you.
that. I love that so much. You had mentioned in your bio that you had moved a lot well, you moved 11 times throughout your own personal career, but your father moved you from a very young age from New York to Colorado. And you're not even living in Colorado anymore, you're in Illinois.
Right.
But you obviously were brought up in a very successful environment. So how would you say that your upbringing and circle of influence impacted the way that you live your life today?
Well, from the corporate side of things, right? When you're sitting at a dinner table as a young girl, you just assume everybody has a corporate job. Like everybody's father does what my father does because you're young and you don't know anything different. But I would also say to you that in growing up, I also realized, and to clarify, really not my papa, but we're Italian, but I lived in a very pretentious family.
Mhm,
And so there were a lot of masks. Now, I was very fortunate in the sense that I didn't believe in that. And
mm,
so I always believed in being maskless. So that was something that I don't know how it happened. I'm glad that it's something that I continue to believe today. But there's things that you take from your past, there's things that you remove from your past, and
mhm,
I guess the wonderful thing about change is you get to make that decision. And
yeah,
Rebecca, I use that word a lot, right? Decisions are everything. That is the most freeing thing that any human being owns. It's priceless, it's ageless, and it's bountiful.
Mm,
Decisions.
they sure are. That is really a part of I think that this has been an ongoing theme in the conversations that I've had so far, is that even though a lot of people may say that a lot of freedoms have been taken away from us or whatever, but we literally day to day are making decisions. Do I go right? Do I go left? Do I take the red pill? Do I take the blue pill? So we're
Absolutely.
every single second of the day, it really is a choice, even though what's going on externally may not allow us to feel that way. But on a day-to-day basis, it really is about decisions, choices, and creation. We are creating as we're going. And that's such a beautiful thing.
Well, I'll say this strongly. I will say this strongly because you just fired up my calic if I was a Labrador. If someone's deciding to think that things around them are making decisions for them, they are choosing to be a victim.
Mhm.
Just wanted to throw that out
Oh yeah. Well, thank you for thank you for throwing that little nugget of wisdom in there.
there.
I know that working in the corporate world, you had mentioned, in past conversations that you worked in a male dominated industry. And do you feel that working in that industry with the masculine energy really allowed you to flourish in, I feel like, if you're a woman, if you're a corporate woman and you can really evolve and succeed in a male dominated industry, I mean, you can pretty much dominate any industry, right?
Well, here's what I will say. I think bigger than male versus female, in America, and only in this beautiful country, we are identified by what we do. I remember when I
Mhm.
first went to college, and I wasn't a big proponent of going to college. I was a downhill ski racer, but my dad decided if I didn't go, he would have cut me off financially. So trust me, I went. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me because, of course, I landed my beautiful job. They even paid for my ski racing until they didn't. But our identity in this country, right? And like I was saying about college, oh, what's your major, right? In our society, what do you do? So people were so enamored with the fact that I had this big corporate job. And I guess I didn't even realize until later on how different I thought than the men. I knew I dressed different.
Mhm.
I knew I didn't have any women mentors because there weren't any. I remember once my father, who was really my executive coach, said to me, Michelle, you got to stop thinking like a girl. And I was like, Dad, come on. I'm in mid management now, and that was kind of the start of me realizing. But yes, I believe that I was able to control my emotions
Mm,
is what I learned because I believed at the time that men had less emotions than women. And I don't believe that anymore. But I did believe that at the time. So I learned very young in my life as a person to learn to control my emotions through my business career.
that's good. That's really good. And do you believe that, because you also have mentioned in the past that you went from working in a male dominated industry to now transitioning to a female dominated industry. Do you believe that your circle of influence has changed even since you transitioned from a male dominated industry to a female dominated industry?
Oh, I think for many reasons, of course. Number one, it's a completely different industry
Mhm.
with a completely different structure, and I'm a completely different person. But even when I was in corporate America working in a male dominated world, I was a board of director for Girl Scouts. So
Mm,
I went from all men to all women, and it was a yes, it's very different. It's a very different vibration, very different when it's all of one, right? When if you had all of any one thing congregating or working together, there's an energy, right? And so, the more diversity you have, the more, that's why people have individual minds making individual decisions like I have in my new business, right? I own my own business, but I don't work alone. That's a beautiful thing. That's a really beautiful thing where, in corporate America, you have to buy in. When someone is paying you an active income, they are telling you how you need to think. How it's their culture. The culture that we work in now is called the freedom culture, the
Mhm.
freedom fun, right? Financial culture. So it's a very different model. But I will say, when I'm interviewing people to work with me in my business, no question, men are much more focused on the numbers. Men are much more focused on the business. And I think because culturally they are brought into the growth process of being the one that's going to carry the financial burden for the family. Now, in our business, that is not always true, or women very often surpass the male. But I think in that belief system where they're brought up very young, that Machiavelli, you know, um, being your knight in shining armor type of thing. Men
Mm.
are much more, when I have a conversation with a potential business partner, and if it's a male, it's all about numbers.
Mm. I
All
can see.
about numbers. In fact, it's a very easy conversation because 2 + 2 = 4. When I have a conversation with a woman, bing, 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 bing. I mean, and both are, fun. And I like having both types of people in my business, but absolutely different. Yes, absolutely.
That is really interesting, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
How different dynamics and even just like upbringings, right? Because they're culturally, even men in different cultures are so different, and it's
Mhm.
great to be able to work in an industry where there's no prejudice in who you can work with, what type of people you're going to draw in, because we draw in so many different types of characters
Absolutely.
in this industry.
That's why I'm
And
still here, because
absolutely.
in fact, I feel like I'm just getting started because the industry and the company that we're aligned with, why would I ever want to leave?
Exactly.
I would never want to leave this culture, this community, this opportunity. It would sadden my life to do that.
Oh, yeah. Well, then that's perfect for the next question, because you did mention that you transitioned to an industry where it's a freedom culture and there is a lot more uplifting energy, and they really want people to succeed individually as well as a culture, right? Like, we are creating a culture of people from various walks of life that are really just doing or creating the way that they desire to create, but using this model of social selling, right? How do you believe that your line of work infects? And I love to use infects because we have been infected with so much negativity, especially over the last year. I think we live in a society where there's the potential to be just sucked into a lot of negativity that happens in the darkness. But how do you feel that your line of work infects our society with positivity?
Because we are one department. So, if you own your own business as an entrepreneur, you have many hats, many departments, right? That's all taken care of in our business. In our business, we are the front line, we are the social selling sales force. And all we do is go out and we promote all the features and benefits of the company. That is our job. And
Mhm.
so if that is all you have to do, right, then everybody has a marching order that is understood, that is clarified, and you all have your own style. I mean, I've been in sales my entire life. The
Mhm.
one thing that you always know is you have your own style. You may have a script when you first start, you may have a trainer when you first start, but at the end of the day, you have your own style, but you have a mission, and that is to bring value to
Mm.
others and grow awareness of what you have from your company to offer to others. So, our department of a very big company, right, is just that. It allows us to be just that one piece, but it is a very, very important piece.
Absolutely.
Any front line of an organization, like a sales force, and we are the marketing department, because we are not advertised. We are word of mouth marketing. So that department doesn't even count. There's no commercials. There's no print advertising. So I think that the kind of culture that we're in with social selling, and when you have a proven virtual online business, and now with the way the world works,
Mhm.
we couldn't be more poised and more gratified. I mean, let's face it, Rebecca, when people started learning about Zoom, we've been doing it for years.
Right.
Right? How many people, we would crack up when you'd see the news and the dog would be barking in the background, and we would know you're not supposed to do that, right? So we have been very poised in our business for even what our world has walked into. I mean, it's almost serendipitous. What a crazy good environment we are in.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And well, so I had done a live yesterday and you were a part of that conversation. And you said it earlier too about how we're so defined by what we do in our society, right? Like nobody asks you about you anymore. Everybody asks you what you do for a living. And that goes into my next question. Do you believe that your work that you do every day is aligned with your higher calling and your purpose?
Now, absolutely. One of the most um, revealing things about my past work was to be very authentic.
Mhm.
I had a big title, I had a big job, I had a big salary, at least for that industry. And I got treated well in planes and hotels, and I wasn't happy. I was
Mm.
lonely. I was unhealthy. I was a bitch. I mean, and now I am just in what you would call flow, right? I just, every day is just a good thing. It's just a good day. And the type of work we do today, you don't have to work real hard.
Mhm.
It's not hard work. It's not, I mean, I would put in, especially traveling. I mean, I traveled 290 nights a year for 15 years. I had 10, 12, 14-hour days. I don't do that here,
Mhm.
right? I get on social media and, and now with intelligence and artificial intelligence, with AI, with computers, I mean, I just show up. But that to me is the bigger piece. That's where the differential happens. And that's where I think we can bring something to the world that they desperately need. And the reason I say that is called consciousness. But the reason I say that is when people say, I'm surviving at home, that it absolutely tears me up because I'm living, right?
Mhm.
I'm thriving at home. And so I really feel for people because you have to be authentic in this work because we're not selling products here. We
Yeah.
are providing people with an opportunity to change the way they live. That's the piece that people don't get. Yes,
Mhm.
there are amazing products in our company, and that's what makes this a non-scheme type of thing because you have a physical product that we put in our bodies and it makes us feel amazing. But what we are really, really offering people is an opportunity to go on a journey that
Yeah.
changes what they're doing into happiness. Because if they didn't want to change, then they wouldn't be interested.
Right.
And if they were looking for something better, a better way, then they're open to our opportunity. But you have to be so you, which is unlike in corporate. In corporate, you had to just kind of follow the marching orders,
Right.
right? That's the big difference. So this is such a growth platform. For some people, they're not interested. For people that are, I mean, I've heard people say this and I love it. It's a growth plan with a compensation plan.
Yes, it's a personal development tool with a compensation plan.
Yes. So, I mean, for people like myself, like you, that's very appealing. You're like, what? What? Right. But I think where we get we have to continue to remember. I mean, I've been doing this 12 years. You always have to remember that not everybody is looking or believes or supports their own ability to be better than they were yesterday or to feel
Mhm.
happier than. And that's where I think you have to be your best self to be able to show up for others, because certainty is sexy. When
Yes.
you meet somebody that's certain, when you meet somebody that's just, come on, like you're like, right? Like, I mean, you can just feel that energy,
Oh
but
yeah.
you have to own it. You can't, that's not like, that's not putting on the zoot suit and marching in line, man. That's stepping out and being that warrior and going, yeah. And then people are just like, whoa, whoa, maybe I can ride that train. You know, that's the difference. That's the difference.
Totally. Michelle, I completely agree with you. And you had mentioned the word authenticity, and I believe that word and taking action on authenticity is so important, and it's so relevant in our society now, because especially because social media is so prominent in this day and age. And social media can, have a lot of filters, right? It doesn't oftentimes doesn't really show you what people are going through behind that phone, right? Before they post that picture of their happy family or their best life picture, whatever it is. But how would you say that you stay relevant, unique, and authentic to yourself and who you are? Because I know that, age is nothing but a number here. And I don't believe that, I just believe that with every year you embrace more wisdom, right? And I just believe that you have a little bit more wisdom than I do. So I'm sure that you've gone through different phases where maybe there wasn't a point in your life where you felt authentic, especially when you were in corporate and you were just kind of going by, other people's rules and stuff. How do you do that every day?
Well, first and foremost, that's what I love about social media is everybody looks like they live in Oz, right? So I love it. I can get on there and I can go, wow, this world is beautiful. So I really like that aspect of social media. Like, I don't want to hear all your crap. I
Right.
want, I want, like, I kind of like that part. On the flip side, I will tell you very authentically, I have been fired many times in corporate America because I wasn't for sale, because
Mm,
I wouldn't concede to being somebody I wasn't. I mean, I
agree.
can remember there was a bold-faced lie going down. A big company I worked for, I was in a boardroom and there was a bold-faced lie going down and I wouldn't put up with it. So the this company was designed for people like me. I've
Mhm.
never been for sale. Never, never.
And you shouldn't be.
I'm
You
not.
shouldn't be. Yeah, I mean, I believe that you can't put a value on a person, especially a person that really is sure. You said it so perfectly about certainty. Certainty is so sexy, and it really is. I mean, you have to know your value. You have to know what you have to bring to the table in order for people to really respect and appreciate and value you as that, right? And I'm sure that's how you've gotten to the position that you're in right now.
Well, my philosophy has always been this: you don't like who I am, walk away. But I got me and I got to sleep with me every night. So me and me got to be really aligned.
Yes.
That's my philosophy.
I love that so much.
Thank you.
um, it's so funny. I was actually on a phone call earlier today, and the person that I was speaking to is actually a potential guest for this upcoming month, and we were talking about being grounded and balanced. And so that goes into my next question: how do you keep yourself grounded and balanced every day?
I don't really believe we are. I don't believe anybody's grounded or anybody's balanced. I think we're, because if are you talking chemically? Are you talking physically? Are you talking spiritually? Are you? So I have a routine. I have a routine that, here's where I always go to. What do I feel? How do
Mhm,
I feel? So if I'm feeling joyful, well, I must be doing something right. If I'm not feeling joyful, I better switch it up, right? If I'm feeling jealous or comparative, I better switch it up because those
mhm,
are horrible. So everything that if you want to use the word balance or grounding, how do I feel? At that moment, at that very moment, how do I feel? If it's something that, if there's two sides of a stick, and if the one side of the stick is joy and the other side of the stick is not, right? I'm always trying to change to go to that side that is. So
mhm.
it's what I feel. And again, I was very lucky to have worked in a very male dominated industry where I believed that I had to hide emotions or control emotions because I've learned very well how to change my feelings. Think something different goes back to decisions. Goes back to
Totally.
decisions.
Do you believe that over the years you have become a lot more into like to what does Hicks say? Tapped in, tuned
Tuned in,
in,
tapped in, and turned on. I
have
think
you
that
always?
when I was younger, absolutely. Absolutely. As I got thrown into a lot of when I all I became was a corporate um, you know, entity,
Mhm.
right? You tapped into what? What were you tapped into? Jet fuel oil? I mean, what were you tapped into? So as a young girl, absolutely. As a mid-aged lady, not so much. Now, you betcha. You betcha. I'm
Yes.
back.
Yes. I love it. And I love the fact that, you mentioned that there was like different phases, like when you were young, you were, and then like the middle ground, there was probably some changes that needed to be made. And then you reverted back to your authentic self, which is that childlike essence, right? Of authenticity, purity, right?
Joy.
Joy.
I was the happiest damn kid. And I'm the happiest damn lady. You know, I'm happy.
Yeah, honestly, audience, this woman. So I didn't mention how long I've known Michelle. So I'm going on 5.5 years now that I've known Michelle. And we were introduced through the company that we are, which I mentioned this company all the time. We're with Isogenics. And so that's how I was introduced to Michelle. Michelle currently lives in Illinois, still lives in Illinois, and I was living in Arizona at the time. And I remember it wasn't even a few weeks after me starting Isogenics, we jumped on a phone call, and it was literally like I connected with a soul sister. And a few months later, I ended up going to Illinois for it was a friend's event, but then there was a University in Action, I believe.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes, with
University
David
in
T.S.
Action.
Wood.
And I actually extended that trip, and Michelle bought me my ticket and she invited me to be a guest in her home. Mind you, I never met her in person before. The only interactions that we had had was through phone calls and video conferences. And so it is amazing how the more aligned that you are within yourself, the more you're able to align with people that are on that same trajectory. It doesn't matter, how much of an age gap or even like the industries that you're in. When you are aligned, you begin to align with other human beings that have a very similar mission and very similar philosophies as you. And I just always felt so drawn to Michelle. And she's always been so positive. She's just always been encouraging. And I've learned so much. The time that I've spent with Michelle has been just you can't even put a price on that. There's just, such a great value. And
Thank you.
yeah, I absolutely just admire and adore you, Michelle. I'm really grateful.
Well, I got to tell you, Missy, you're pretty easy to love.
Thanks. Thank you so much. No, it's, we're all work in progress, and I feel the same way, that I've definitely evolved so much, especially this past year. And I believe that if people didn't have that like awakening moment in 2020, and that's the next question, like, what was your biggest aha moment from last year?
Yeah. Well, last year was a big year for me because I lost a very important person in my life. And so, but in terms of, are you referring to like COVID and no, okay, because COVID has really, my life hasn't changed that much, and my better half and I have probably gotten even closer.
Mm,
But last year was a very big year in my life
mhm.
because I mean, my father was 93. It's not like this man didn't live. He
Right.
retired 40 years ago.
Wow.
So, you couldn't even be mad, sad, or anything, but it was definitely different.
Sure.
Um, when you've had a support system as massive as this man is, um, and then it's gone, there's a there's a sadness, but there's also a freedom from that.
Yeah.
It's almost like I got this.
Mhm.
I got this,
Yes.
you know? So, but that really was the biggest piece of 2020 was my dad.
Oh my gosh, Michelle. And I've told you this, like, my condolences, because I just lost my grandfather at 92 this year. It was the day after my birthday.
I
And
remember. It's
yeah,
not.
92 and 93, that's something to celebrate.
Absolutely. And you
Right?
had the same I remember you saying to me, Michelle, he was 92, but it's still, when people leave the physical world, there's also a little bit of jealousy. Like, okay, they're, like they're going to swing on the swing and we're still not swinging. Yeah, no, but that really was impactful.
Mhm,
Very, very, very impactful. It also made me realize why I'm so independent
mhm,
because I had this support force. Like I'm actually closer to my life partner, Dale, now because my father's not alive. And I
mm,
couldn't have known that until I did.
right.
It's interesting. Life
Ab-
is interesting. It's very interesting.
oh yeah. Oh yeah. It totally is. And I mean, there's nothing that you can do or say, to take uh that experience away, of just like mourning or grieving, and then also remembering all the amazing times that you had. Because I have my father who's 73, and he's like my best friend. Like, that
Right. I
man is,
love hearing you talk
oh,
about you and your dad.
I love him so much.
I love hearing you talk. And, even the ability to just break out into tears
Yes.
because I have so much feeling for this man is such a great thing because, again, going back to my science background, when you release bad serotonin and it only comes out through the eyes, it gives you a euphoric feeling after. So right now, I'm so grateful I got to cry because now I feel like, woo, it's so cool. But I love when you talk about your dad and your mom, and I just love hearing that. I just think it's beautiful. I wish every child could have that feeling, that experience. I wish every child could have a meal every day. I wish every child could feel the love that oozes out of you when you talk about your parents. I wish that for every child.
Oh my
Every
God.
child.
Me too. Me too. And same for you, Michelle. I mean, every time you spoke about Papa,
Mm,
it's like you lit up
mm.
and still do. still do. And that's such a beautiful thing, because even though, souls transition to another dimension, their spirit always resides here. And that's such a beautiful thing, to have those amazing memories of the people that we've loved, right? And there's never really a loss, there's a gaining of so many amazing experiences and memories, and knowing that, heaven, the other heaven, just gained another angel, and that's so
Right.
beautiful. So, what words of wisdom would you give to those seeking a deeper understanding of themselves?
I'm going to give you the wisdom that my father gave me. And that's why I can't be sad, because my father, 2 days before he passed, I said to him, Dad, you've done amazing things with your life. And he really did extraordinary things. And I said, do you have any regrets? And he goes, Michelle, I don't believe in regrets. He said, what are you going to do to change it anyway? He goes, that's just a ridiculous idea. So if you can buy into the idea that never regret is just a ridiculous idea, then that's an easier path. But if you believe that it might be difficult if you have regrets, then live every day making sure that you don't.
Mm, that's beautiful.
That's from Papa.
When did he give you that advice?
He passed on April 30th, so on April 28th of 2020.
Really?
Mhm.
So he already knew that he was going to transition at that point?
So how crazy is this? Talk about making a decision. Now you understand where they say that successful people are fast decision makers, right? That has been known throughout any of the career books and success books. But when my father left his home, went to a retirement community, thought it was the greatest thing he ever did. And then he said to me, COVID happened. He fell again. He said, Michelle, I need more help than just our caregiver. Put me over at assisted. I need more help. And then 2 days later, he said, now I need you to make me an appointment with hospice. And I said, what? What? He goes, I'm transitioning.
Oh, wow.
And I said, Dad, I don't think you can make an appointment with hospice. He goes, well, I'm telling you to. Now, it turned out on a scale from 0 to 10, you needed a 3 to be, he was at 6. But just the way he delivered, just the way he decided, just the way he understood was, it was just that's the way the man lived, with decision. And that's what I don't know anything different, because
Mhm,
that's all I've known. That's all I've seen. And the other ways, if I tried not to make decisions, it didn't work so well,
mhm.
right? It didn't work so well. So whether you believe that regrets are just a bad idea, or that you fear having regrets, then don't have any. Then do it all right, because you have the ability to do it all right, because you get to decide what's right. That's what I would say.
You do. And that's beautiful advice, Michelle. And thank you, Papa, for those words of wisdom. And living 93 years old, that man knows what he's talking about. That man knows what he's talking about. He's been around the sun quite a bit.
Quite a bit.
Oh, that's beautiful. And that really resonates for me, because I truly don't believe in mistakes. I believe that everything that we do or that we've experienced is just all information, right? And if you don't allow yourself to experience and do things the wrong way, then you're never going to know how to do things the right way.
Well, is it wrong, or is it just part of the journey that you're supposed
Yeah,
to be learning, right?
absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So when I think something's a mistake, I always go to my favorite shoulder. Sometimes it's the left, sometimes it's the right. And I'll be like, what am I supposed to learn from that? Right? Like if I have an accident, one of the greatest accidents we've had recently is I live on a golf course, and as you know, you've walked it with me. A golfer broke our window in our bedroom, and it looked like a horrible thing, right? Horrible thing. because he broke our window, for the love of God, right? Well, it turned out he knew a guy who knew a guy who knew a guy that got me my original windows because I was trying to get one replaced on that 6 pane. So it turned out to be the greatest accident, right? What started out to be, you broke the window, turned into being, my windows are all matching now. Then he turned me on to another guy because, in Chicago, everybody knows a guy. It's just the way they
Right.
talk here.
Right.
So, an accident is always a good accident because something always comes out of it if you're
Absolutely.
focused on it.
Absolutely.
If
It's
you're
so
focused.
true. It's so true. And this is really the point of these conversations is that, you know, sometimes, and majority of the time, our logical mind cannot see the higher perspective of our experience. I was even just telling the guests from yesterday, this morning, because we were conversing how amazing that conversation was.
I love it.
And I was telling her, I was like, there can be a higher perspective in every situation. And I feel like oftentimes you're not able to fully see the big picture when you're in the experience, especially when you're feeling like it's not the best experience that you're in. But then when you can look back at it after it's already passed, you're like, oh my gosh, that was a piece of the puzzle that I know was missing. And now it all makes sense. It's all coming together, right? So sometimes it's almost as though we have to kind of allow time to pass to even like maybe even have a conversation with someone that can like bring light to that situation and or like give us that aha, right? Like that the light just switched that turned on right now, that it all makes sense. It all makes sense why this happened. But yeah, no, this is great because having these conversations, especially from people that are having such a different experience. Everybody, I was telling Daisy yesterday that we can literally we can be in a room and we can be looking at the same piece of art and we can be looking at the piece of art in such a different
Absolutely.
with different perspectives, right? And
Rebecca, you made a comment earlier about, was I always what I am today? And I remember as we're talking, I was married once and I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy. In fact, I was miserable, horrible. I lived in a house, not a home. And I worked and worked is when I traveled all the time. Probably what kept the marriage going as long as it did, right? It lasted a decade, but I wasn't home for the last 7 years of it. So do the math. But I remember that one of the skills I taught myself, or maybe someone taught me, but it was brilliant. So I probably taught myself. No, I'm kidding. But I took a picture, a greeting card, and on the front of it was a camera. And I put it in a frame and I put it on my bed stand. And when I traveled, I took it with me everywhere I went. And when I woke up in the morning, I looked at that and I decided what I was going to focus on for that day.
mm,
And at night, when I went to sleep, I decided what I was going to focus on at night. And I
mm,
remember I even put back then, because I got married in 82, I got divorced in 92. But I remember I wanted to focus on happy thoughts. And it was a pretty tough environment when I was at home because I wasn't in a happy place. So I would look at that camera picture and I bought a cassette with headphones in my ears and I would go to bed at night listening to the sounds of dolphins
mm.
because it set my radar up better. So when you learn to focus, and that was just my way of remembering to focus was this camera lens. And I can still picture it like it was sitting on my desk right now. It's so interesting. It was a black and white picture. It just had a little bit of pink in it. Very little, almost a mauve color. But it was such a great way for me to continually condition myself to focusing on, and I remember when I got divorced and I said to the man, my ex-husband, I said, I'm not trying to ruin your life. I'm just trying to get mine back
Mm.
because I was focused on just doing the right thing for me, not all the other aspects that went with it. So if that helps anybody out there, I mean, there's tools, there's so many ways to help yourself. And as you were just saying, right, that's what these conversations really are, you're bringing to light to people, and you're so good at that. So if that helps anybody, then that's great. And if anybody thinks I'm a lunatic, I am.
That's so good. How do you feel like your perspective really changed even in the relationship dynamic, because you went from, because you were married 10 years and then I'm sure there was a transition or a period of time where you weren't in partnership, and now that you are in partnership, how do you feel like the dynamic changed from then to now?
Well, it's so interesting because what I thought I was walking into in what turned out to be a marriage, because I never really had the aspiration to be married by the legal terminology in our country. And then when I did my own divorce and I realized that every state has different laws, made it even more. And there's just so much. But what I desired to be my life partner is what I have today.
Mm.
It's what I have today. It's what I thought I was walking into, and even the marriage part. I only got married. And this is going to sound terrible to a lot of people that like the idea of being married. Maybe I won't say it.
Say it.
Well, I left Johnson and Johnson. I moved to Seattle, Gig Harbor, Washington, and my then boyfriend said to me, "You don't have health insurance anymore. Maybe we should just get married." And I was like, "Oh, I didn't even think about that." Okay, I mean, because I mean. So we went to Lake Tahoe. We had 17 people come to our wedding. He said, "Do you want an engagement ring?" I said, "No, I want a dry suit because I want to learn how to dive," because he was a big time diver and surfer. And I said, "My wedding present needs to be a yellow Labrador retriever because I've always wanted a dog." That's crazy. That's crazy. So probably didn't start off on the right foot to begin with.
That's another reason why I wanted to have these conversations, because oftentimes in our society, our relationships are very superficial, very surface, and I believe that human beings have so much depth, and we are multidimensional, right? So our relationships should be multidimensional too. And I embrace the differences that people have, and also to be able to come into a relationship, and not just like a husband wife or a partnership where you're moving in with somebody or whatever, but it's in every relationship dynamic. Like, I really just appreciate the dynamic that I have with you.
As I with you.
Yeah, and I believe we're
We
mirrored
work at it. We work at it.
every day.
Yep.
Every day, and
Absolutely.
it's a never-ending evolution, and I believe that relationships have the ability to really prosper, to grow and evolve when you are prospering, growing, and evolving within yourself, when you adopt a growth mindset and not accepting this being stagnant, you know what I mean? And same with your partner, like your relationship will always flourish if you both have that mindset of you it's a never-ending evolution.
Well,
We're going to
you
be.
and I both believe in this is another, way to really, as you used words like grounded and balanced. But if for your listeners, if you haven't read the Four Agreements,
Mm.
read it because I listened to it again this morning when I was doing my yoga. Right? There's always like, that wasn't in that book before. And I do Audible, but it's
Uh-huh.
always like, that wasn't there before.
Yeah,
Don Miguel Luis.
the Reese.
Yeah, Ruiz. Thank you.
Yes, no, the Don is the Don.
The Don. Amen.
He's the Don. Oh my goodness. Okay, so one last question before we wrap this up. What is your because I mean, I did ask you about the grounded and being balanced and all, but How would you walk us through a typical day in the life of Michelle?
Sure. Well, one thing never changes. I wake up, and the first thing I do is tell Jesus how much I love him
Mm.
and how thankful I am. And I really try to just be thankful that I got to breathe, that my fingers, and I'm not always great at that. Really, usually the first thing I think is I got to go to the bathroom, but I try to think about my fingers moving and, my eyelashes moving. And so then Dale and I, we read from, we don't read the Bible, but we read a beautiful book called Jesus Answers
Mhm.
and Jesus Calling, because it really is just something that really sets our day. And then we have a mantra that we do every morning, and we repeat it back and forth to each other to set our day. Again, it's that whole, and if we're not in the same bed, if we're in a different city, we're doing that by phone,
Oh,
because the way that beliefs grow is by repeating them. So I'll share my mantra with you every day. In every way, I'm leaner, fitter, better, stronger, wealthier than yesterday.
yes.
And so and we just make a game of that. By then, if, obviously when we're home, our beautiful little puppy dogs that are little squeaky little Bijans are about by then. And now it's all about them. So then our day begins. And so then I get the family, Dale usually off to work, unless it's the weekend, the puppies, their food. And then I have, my mornings are mine. And if I take an hour or if I take 3 hours, that's my choice.
Mhm.
But it's all about, meditating. It's all about praying. It's all about exercise. It's all about just, I love my office and I just sit in here and I don't know how else to say it. So that's the way my day starts. And I've always given myself the morning. And when I traveled, um, as a younger woman, I was always afraid, being on the road can be very fattening. So I was impeccable about what I ate and I always exercised. So if I had a 7 a.m. flight, I got up at 3 in the morning because, it takes a couple hours to get out of the hotel. But I've never woken up to just go do what I'm supposed to do. I've never done that. That to me is insane.
Mhm.
And that has been probably the biggest gift,
Mm.
the biggest gift. And when I retire at night, I really just try to breathe,
Mhm.
and I really, again, I just think about how thankful and how grateful I am to be me. I love being, you've heard me say this, I love being me. I love people, and there's so many people that I admire and just enjoy, but I would never want to be anybody but me. I just love who I am.
And I
And so
love,
I'm so grateful for that.
yes, and I love who you are too. And anybody who's watching, I just 100% encourage you to embrace who you are, because
Mm,
like I mentioned in this last segment that we each have a specific DNA code, and we should never allow ourselves to fall into the comparison trap. It's trash. It's trash. You should never compare yourself to anybody else. You should be your own best gift. You should never,
unless you want to be a victim.
yeah, exactly. Never depending on anybody else to make you happy. And Michelle, you are such a great example of
Mm.
living in your most authentic self, loving yourself, embracing gratitude. I mean, your social media, and I'm just like Michelle. I feel like social media is anything that you want it to be. And for me, it is like a vision board, right? I see everything that I want to see, and I am very focused. And it is so important. There's a saying that says, where focus goes, energy flows. So
Love that.
if you're focusing on the negativity, if you're focusing on the darkness, you're going to find more of it, and you're going to continue to victimize yourself. So I just encourage you to embrace yourself, embrace who you are, your authenticity, and show it to the world, because you
Yeah, you're awesome,
that
people.
exactly you
Believe it. We do.
Yeah, exactly. Or we'll believe it for you until you
That's my
believe it.
point. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Exactly. We'll do it for you.
Any finishing statements, Michelle?
I just thank you, Rebecca, for just the love and the inspiration and the authenticity that you bring to the planet. Girl, you're a sparkle. And I just am so grateful you're in my life. So
Oh,
grateful.
oh, thank you, Michelle, so much. Well, okay, so then thank you. I really appreciate you, Michelle. I want to take the time to thank every single soul, you beautiful soul that is going to tune into this recorded call. Thank you for taking the time to just be here.
Mm, mm.
Thank you for taking the time to really show up for yourself because, tuning into these types of conversations, you definitely have to be a person who's seeking higher perspectives as well as not accepting what is, right? Because you can change your narrative at any given point. You
What
don't
if?
you don't have to be defined by who you were yesterday, right? You don't have to be defined by who you were this morning because that's already history. The only thing that really matters and what's really happening is what's happening right here and right now. So I encourage you to take the time to really self-reflect and self-assess where you currently are. Self-correction is so important. That's how we reach a level of mastery that will allow us to live a life filled with freedom, happiness, joy, abundance, and abundance not meaning that you have $1 million in the bank, although we're all on our way there.
Well,
But
some of us already are.
exactly. We have that $1 million mindset. But it really is just about shifting your perspective on what's really happening and in just embracing all the abundance that could be and already is. So thank you again, and we will see you soon. Peace.
Thank you, Rebecca.
You're welcome.